Hey, I'm Todd Brown, and I make these videos because I want you to rip on race day. Move over to Dr. Scott, Dr. V, and we're super glad to have you on the podcast. And would love, so you met some of the guys, so we meet every week, Scott, and we kind of check in, see how we're doing, things we're working on. Some people are doing some amazing things. Honestly, I got a little teary-eyed for you, Terry, so I'm really stoked about that.
For sure.
Right.
So
Thanks.
if you could,
Thanks
Scott,
a lot.
give us can you give us like Scott and I know each other from, do you want me to call you Dr. V?
Yes, that'd be great.
Dr. V and I know each other through the cycling community. So we bump into each other all the time on local trails, and so I thought it would be great to have Dr. V join us. And he
Yes.
offered the topic of talking about pains we might have. But before we get there, give us a little background. I read your bio. I think I posted it for everybody. If I didn't, I apologize. But give us a little bit of your background, how you got into the practice, your practice in particular, and how you got there. I would love to hear that.
Okay. Is my mic on? You can hear me okay, right?
Yeah.
We're good.
I can hear you great.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's been athletics for me all along. I was a natural bodybuilder early on. My wife and I were Mr. and Miss Natural California in the 90s. And then as I was going through chiro school.
I gotta pause you right there.
What?
Were you guys married then, or did you meet lifting weights, or tell us about that?
we met in the gym.
Okay.
Famous line as I was passing her going to the water fountain. I said, "Oh, it kind of looks like you know what you're doing." And
solid pickup line.
Right. Oh, that's a great line.
Smooth.
So we end up working out together. Kind of funny story there, I guess. We, like I said, I was a meathead and all that, drug free. Everything I did was natural, drug tested bodybuilding shows. So I was doing back, and she ended up working out with me and doing pull-ups with weighted pull-ups and all that sort of stuff. And I guess I worked her a little too hard, and she couldn't move for the next 3 weeks and hid from me. So after we reconnected, went out, got married, competed Mr. Miss Natural California, as I said, in the 90s, did great there. During chiro school, they taught, well, and I got into healthcare because I was diagnosed hypoglycemic, had blood sugar issues, and I was all over the place because everything I was doing at the time was the anaerobic training and doing high carb diet, which was kind of vogue at the time. Then I started getting these nasty headaches, which part of why I'm doing more of the whole podcast thing and trying to get the word out. I've got a book coming out early next year, somewhere around March, on headaches and the natural solutions for the 7 different patterns of headaches. So that's kind of the big picture right now. But I got into healthcare because of headaches I had. I went through the medical model. They said, "Oh, don't work out." Absolutely not. You might have an aneurysm. Did the CAT scan with the dyes and all the crazy chaos that goes along in that field. They said, "Well, you don't have an aneurysm. Go see a psychiatrist." I wasn't too keen on that answer at 19 years old or whatever I was at the time. Got into natural healthcare, got my first adjustment, realized that chiropractic fit along with I quit eating sugar when I was 14. Talking about Terry's quitting smoking and stuff like that. At 14, I realized I was a punk when I ate sugar. So I gave it up, haven't turned back.
All on your own, you realized that?
14.
You had your own realization that I'm just a total jerk when I'm on sugar at 14.
Pretty much. I mean, I was diagnosed hypoglycemic through this holistic health practitioner. And at first I kept eating my donuts and then realized that I'd get into trouble or I'd be lighting firecrackers in class. And so
that's really cool. You don't hear that a lot. The self-awareness of a 14-year-old. That's
seriously
awesome. That's
awesome. 14, we all felt invincible, right?
Yeah, we were.
Right. So, when I discovered chiropractic fit in with the whole natural health arena, and I could, understand the body better and feel better myself and bless others with this gift that I'd experienced and how much better I felt. Jumped in while I was in chiro school. I took a position in a club to kind of bring on all the who's in chiropractic, so I could figure out who was the most effective, basically. That led to this approach in chiropractic and natural health called applied kinesiology. That's part of what we'll open with a little bit tonight, but that merges the whole muscle organ correlations. Excuse me, and gives a very nice, convenient diagnostic tool that can then actually empower us because it helps know, where the pain's coming from or what the trigger would be. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but got into that while I was in chiro school. I took the main course for that 3 times. So by the time I got out of chiro school, I was elevated enough to be able to help teach it. So first 10 years of that, I was helping teach this AK applied kinesiology course. And then from there, kind of took on the seminar world on my own, been teaching docs around the country. And most of it started with athletic performance kind of stuff initially. Running around kind of the country doing a lot of that. I haven't done as much the last couple of years because of some shakeups in the industry. But that's kind of where I've kind of gotten in. Most of the last few years, most of what I've been teaching doctors is how to deal with autoimmune conditions. Because with COVID and all the junk that's been going on, that's opening the door unfortunately, for cancers and autoimmune conditions. So I've been trying to help docs understand how to handle that in a more appropriate way. So that's the cliff notes of how I got to sit with you in a white coat and
I love that. As you're talking, I'm thinking, oh, I know someone that could use you. I know someone that can use this. That's great. So you ride bikes?
I ride bikes. Yes. Lots.
How did you get into cycling and how long ago?
Oh yeah. So I was a natural bodybuilder in chiro school. During my physiology instructor at the time said people are either good aerobic athletes or good anaerobic athletes. I'm a rebel. I proved myself as an anaerobic athlete. I'm like, I got my Mr. California. So I'm gonna get into some aerobic training and prove that I can be successful in both. So with my graduation money in chiro school, I bought my first Cannondale Delta V mountain bike. Nice. And shows how long ago it was, right? Yeah. So that was actually 30, actually next week, it's 31 years ago.
It's the height of the 90s. That's when mountain biking was on fire.
Right. So I bought a mountain bike at that time with my graduation money, started riding bikes, doing a lot of aerobic. Initially, I was some of the initial reading I did in the subject. I felt like I was kind of my buddy Chris Sermala used to always call me the zone 2 governor guy, because I was all into the aerobic thing and not pushing my adrenals too hard really for the first 10 years of my riding. And and then so I got into road riding as well to capitalize on the long duration kind of base mileage really is what I did solely for the first 10 years. Then realized I got tired of watching my friends go up the hills and got into the intensity. And so as I started pushing the intensity in hill climbing, I started with 1 day a week. I got it the second day a week, and then I started get sick if I pushed any more than that, and had to keep building it, building up, building the tempo and all the other FTP and so on.
Nice.
That's kind of quick summary in the cycling genre. Oh, and then so as I started doing all the aerobic, I got pretty addicted because I realized I felt my blood sugar was a whole lot more stable, and I felt a lot more fit and just more on fire, focusing more on the aerobic stuff. So I mean, I always kind of joke about I want to be the first guy at the top of the hill, but I don't want to look like him, with my bodybuilding mentality.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's funny.
So I miss the look, but I love the feel, as an aerobic cyclist, aerobic athlete.
Yeah, I think we're all on board with that for sure.
Right.
So I'm just looking at my notes here. You had mentioned that you wanted to talk about some of the pain things that are common pain things that cyclists might have. I have everybody muted now, but do you want me to unmute them so if they want to ask you questions, or do you want to stay muted and you kind of present for a little bit?
I wrote some stuff down to try to combine some of the topics that they wrote.
Okay.
Is there other injuries that have been talked about since the
No,
post you put?
Just on the, nothing in particular.
So tell you what, I'll throw some out, and then they can add if they want, if there's other injuries that I don't mention in this next 2 sentences. Okay. So basically, I was going to combine overtraining. Typically, some of the physical aspects of that are going to be the L5 low back pain, which is that belt line right in the center, low back pain that a lot of people are going to get. Inner knee pain on the inside of the knee. If somebody's running, they're going to get shin or ankle pains. Or crash in the immune system. So those are all adrenal issues. So we're going to talk about those. And then the other types of knee pain, typically on the kneecap area, those are, or the other part of the knee. Those are super common for cyclists. So we'll talk about those, and that's their small intestine function. What else did I have in my, you talked about hand numbness and that sort of stuff. So a lot of that.
I get hand pain right here.
Okay, so in that specific area, that's going to be a colon issue, right, actually. Here. Yeah, so that's in acupuncture, that's a large intestine 4 acupuncture point, and so that tells me that typically there's something that a person's eating that's whacking the intestine or congesting, if you will, intestinal function. So yeah, we can look at that too. Okay. Typically, when I heard hand numbness, I was thinking more like general hand numbness, or positional stuff on the bike.
Oh yeah, not for me, but maybe one of the other guys would have that.
Right. So again, I'm with the caliber of this group, I'm assuming that the bike fit's already been done and everybody's already dialed, that way. So we're going to look at, and really my goal today is to empower the group. With things that they can do in their, what their body's trying to tell them through these aches and pains. So I think that was the gist of what I was going to talk about. Any other questions? Is that any other?
You guys can unmute yourselves if you have a question that you want to ask, or if you want to just.
Any injury areas to discuss?
Yeah, probably not. I guess just lead on, I guess, with what you have prepared.
All right. So I scared them all away. Everybody's already hung up. Is that?
No, they're all there. They can unmute. You guys can unmute yourselves, or and ask questions if you want to.
Okay, nice. So I'm willing to answer questions. So basically, the foundation of all this is muscles all have associated glands or organs with them. So, and what happens is they become what neurologically we call it conditionally inhibited. So like the quad muscles, the 4 muscles of the thigh get inhibited when small intestine function is not as it should be. And so that gives us a great tool, a great avenue to figure out what we as athletes or health pursuers need to change to feel and function our best. So any muscle you think about, like, Todd, you were talking about the thumb area pain. The muscle that goes along with that is this quadratus lumborum. It's in the low back, basically attached from the pelvis to the ribs. That muscle is going to spaz out when the large intestine is not functioning right. So that's a type, very common type of low back pain. And so that's a good example of one of the muscle organ correlations. Some of the muscles in the shoulder are going to get weak when the lung's not functioning. Certainly we're pushing the lungs a lot. Let's take a little tangent for Terry. Terry, you're talking about your smoking thing. One of the best things you can do to help keep the cravings down and help you get over the cigarettes is taking a zinc supplement. Are you taking anything like that at this point?
Not yet, but that I'll do it.
So a lot of what happens with smoking is there's toxic metals like cadmium and arsenic that a person absorbs, and so that's going to obviously create issues. And with those toxic metals, it causes a deficiency of zinc. So if you start taking a good zinc supplement, that's going to help keep those cravings down and help push out some of the toxic metals. And kind of the fun part with that is it starts making the cigarettes not taste good anymore. So it makes it real easy to kind of kick the habit and bounce back a little faster. So I'd encourage you from that to look at a good zinc supplement. Usually 1 or 2 tablets in the morning is enough. And that'll also help keep the cravings down, because a lot of times, a lot of other people that have quit smoking, all of a sudden when zinc levels start coming back up, then food tastes good and they start, because it probably didn't taste as good when with the toxic metals inhibit the sense of of taste. And so then you start getting that back, and all of a sudden it's like, woo, I want to eat this. And people, that's why people often gain weight when they quit smoking and stuff. So zinc's a good way to kind of abate or keep some of that
right there, Scott.
Yeah, bring it on.
Is that why, I look at pictures of the 50s and 60s when everyone was smoking, and they're all skinny. Is part of the reason that people were skinny when they were smoking, that food just didn't taste as good?
Food didn't taste as good. It sets up like malabsorption kind of issues. And although back in you said 60s, when those
60s and 60s, right?
Yeah, all that era, vegetables had a lot more zinc and minerals in them. Unfortunately, our soil's gotten kind of depleted of zinc. It's probably one of the most common deficiencies I see. So we're even more zinc deficient than we were back in the 50s, which would be part of why they do okay. I mean, like I was in Greece last few months ago, and on the Mediterranean diet, and people they all smoke like chimneys, but there's not nearly the obesity problem that we see around here, because they're the food's a little better. So the Mediterranean diet. So yeah, that's kind of how those fit together.
Is Zicam okay, or is that only if you have a cold or flu? Is Zicam on a regular basis or no?
Yes, it can. Do you know your blood type by chance?
No.
Yeah, Zicam works real well for A blood types and short term for O blood types in general. So yeah, in general.
Okay. Yeah. All right, I'll have to find out.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions?
Sorry to hijack there.
Front. So that's and zinc got really popular with the whole COVID thing, right? Because viruses leach zinc, and so the immune system burns up our zinc stores in trying to fight a virus. Symptomatically, that'd be the little white clouds that some people might have. Terry, check your fingernails and look for the little white clouds in there. That's often a sign of chronic zinc deficiency. Takes 8 weeks to grow from cuticle to tip, so that kind of tells how long ago a person was deficient in zinc, or might have been sick at that time. So,
where are you located?
Any of the fingernails.
Where's your practice? Where's your
practice? Oh, where am I located? I'm in Laguna Niguel. South Orange.
Oh, yeah. That's not that bad. Not that too far. Not like Kansas.
Yeah. Right. And actually, somebody was talking about Palm Springs. I'm going to be in Palm Springs for the Christmas week. I'd love to find a riding partner while I'm there.
Hey, there you go. Right here.
All right.
Yeah. I'll take you. I got some fun routes.
Nice. Road or
either way. Gravel, or you want to climb hills, or you want us to be road. I can take you on all of that.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Have to hit me up offline, and we'll make sure I'm going to be close enough to connect with you when I'm there.
Do you have a mountain bike?
I have both. Okay, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll connect you guys when we're done.
Okay.
Good. So again, every muscle has associated glands or organs. So the thing that makes that so cool is that it empowers us to be able to figure it out. And unfortunately, most practitioners are not looking at that mechanism. So they're just trying to blunt, inflammation or do things like that aren't necessarily health inducing, or looking at, it doesn't give them the tool to understand why a person's ailing. So, let's talk about the overtraining stuff a little bit, because that's probably something that most of us are going to deal with. And again, the primary premise, especially like when I was bodybuilding, or even now, or as I got back into the, hill climbing and that sort of stuff. Basically the goal is to basically train as hard as we can without falling off the cliff, right? We want to train, beat ourselves down to then grow up, build up stronger, stronger, faster. And so, I mean, for me, it's typically push it as hard as I can without jumping off the cliff, meaning getting sick. So if I'm pushing it too hard and trying to, a race and got all that stuff in mind, and I don't listen to my body, I don't get appropriate rest, then I end up crashed and burned, or, then I end up having to miss a week or something because my immune system goes nuts. So listening to the body is huge there. There's some herbs, there's things that can be done, things that are going to make that worse, unfortunately. Caffeine is going to ruffle some feathers potentially. I use caffeine. I use it on interval days and that sort of stuff. But fortunately, coffee never even tasted good for me. So I never got into that too much. But I'll use some of the energy type stuff for my interval days, and some of that are like matcha or, you know, green tea based stuff. But carefully, and typically where this has backfired for me in the past is like rock cobbler. A couple of years ago, I was doing cobbler and working like a nutcase, as I tend to do anyway, and training for an A race, and then going into something like cobbler. And we all know, right, never change anything on race day. So I had my jersey stuffed with these power snacks that I was eating. That was my go-to food for riding. And 2 hours into the race, my back started spazzing out every time I put one in my mouth. I'm like, shoot, I'm just barely getting into the race. And I was reacting to the food that I was counting on for the whole day. And so the mechanism there is with training, there's a thing called leaky gut, where the gut intestinal lining gets permeable, and which means things get absorbed into the bloodstream and cause inflammation, cause problems that shouldn't necessarily be there. So when we're overtrained, we're getting ready for a race or event like that, that's when we're most prone to crash and burn from a leaky gut sort of inflammation perspective. And then we throw caffeine into that. Again, that's typically when I would do caffeine, is when I'm trying to, you know, hit it, you know, being stimulated for my A race. So between that and then the overtraining leading up to it, it tends to set the stage where we tend to react to whatever we're doing the most regularly. So again, in my case, I was eating those power snacks on every ride, really relying on them for my calories during riding, and I became allergic to them because they were just something that was in my system all the time, and then I was overtrained. So that's a really common mechanism for us, what's called us motivated athletes. So with that in mind, one is, you know, keeping balance. There's some herbs I'll talk about to maybe help get through that season. But then moderation. I mean, I'm a big fan of finding what works, but alternating and doing different things. You know, like figs is a very common food for me now as my ride food. I like to use whole food type stuff as best I can. But I alternate. I mean, I have some of the different shot blocks, or I like Mirror Energy. We can talk about foods or do another podcast for that sort of stuff another day. But I like whole food based products, and I try to alternate them and rotate them, so I'm not doing the same thing every day, because then I'm going to be a lot more prone to become reactive or allergic, if you will, to those foods. So the physical manifestations of what we'll call overtraining is that medial knee pain, the inside of the knee, the sartorius and the gracilis muscle, the two main muscles that support the inside of the knee, they will get weak when the adrenals are frying. And so that's our sign that, hey, we're overtraining. We need to take a rest day or do a little bit more base mileage type stuff. The other thing, you know, I talked about that L5, low back pain. Those are all signs of that we might be pushing too hard. Either we need to use some herb to kind of push it, or we need to, you know, back down, you know, balance the training, the life a little bit. Was there a question? That we're all good? Okay. So those of us that deal with this, one of my favorite herbs for that is an herb called astragalus. It helps the immune system balance and deal with the chronic stress of, especially like race season. So I tend to use that herb more during peak season, or when I'm doing more of the interval stuff. So that's kind of how that's a very common herb. Another herb that is good for that is an herb called Eleuthero, Eleuthero. Eleuthero. That's what it's a Siberian ginseng. It's one of the herbs the Russians kind of used to tilt the scale in their favor in the Olympics back in the 70s. So it's a nice herb for that. So those are a couple of. Eleuthero is a good they call it amphoteric. In others, it helps stabilize the stress response. It's real good for athletic training. Astragalus is more for that, you know, oops, I pushed it too hard, I'm about to get sick. Astragalus is the bomb for that. So there's a couple of herbs.
How do you spell astragalus?
Astragalus. Astragalus.
I guess right.
Nice. Yeah, as it sounds, right?
Spelling
Yeah. Jim, what's up?
Hey. You mentioned caffeine for certain times. I don't normally use it. What's a good amount, like before a ride or a race?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's going to be somewhat dependent. If somebody's doing caffeine or coffee, they're going to be more, right? They're going to be desensitized to it. For you and I that are just using it conditional specific, in other words, for a race, I mean, it basically ends up being shot blocks or like this mirror. I mean,
Like
I use
Zip, I think Zip Fizz is 80 milligrams. The liquid IV with caffeine, I think, is the same amount. Is that? I know Bierman one time that mentioned 200.
Yeah, so 200, I would think would be more somebody that's doing a lot of probably doing coffee in the morning, sort of stuff. For me, 80 is probably going to be about the top end. If I push it too much more than that, I'm more prone to get those leaky gut symptoms that I was just talking about. I'm more prone to become reactive to whatever any other food that I eat. I mean, when I was stressed out moving my office and stuff, I was sneezing and reacting to my stinking filtered water. I mean, it could be anything by the time we get to that sort of stress level. So great question. I mean, yes, I would say 80 for a non-caffeine person. If somebody doing coffee on the regular, 200 is probably going to be a little bit more legit. What happens is the liver pathway, the methylation pathway that detoxifies that, is going to get somewhat desensitized or inhibited for the person that's using it a lot. So they're going to need more. That's why I like to use it when it's time, that way I get I get the more powerful benefit, if you will, and can use it more appropriately instead of just counting on it to be over energetic every day at work kind of thing. Great question.
Yeah, sounds good.
Any other questions on that, like overtraining, physical aches and pains? So that's going to be the low back pain that, feels like the bike's not quite right and so on. It's going to be right in the center of the back. So, I mean, Todd, you mentioned back pain too. Now you're talking about thumb. The other type of back pain is going to be that area I was talking about, which is kind of the flank area in here. Yeah. Those muscles will spasm when the large intestine is not functioning optimally. So that's a slightly different pain, but it's easier to figure out if you once you know that it's a digestive issue, then you can kind of just pay attention to like for me that cured me on corn. If I eat corn, I'm going to get that type of pain. I wake up in the morning feeling like an old bent over old man.
Now, does that count as popcorn and tortilla chips as well?
That counts for popcorn. It counts for maltodextrin that's in a lot of our like electrolytes or, energy, ride food. So yeah.
High fructose corn syrup.
Right. Especially high fructose corn syrup. Yeah. So those are going to be super inflammatory. Unfortunately, there's this mechanism where the corn kind of stresses the adrenals. It's almost like doing intervals, if you will, the way it affects the physiology. So yeah.
All forms of corn.
I'm sorry, what's that?
All forms of corn.
Yeah, I know you were talking about.
I take it you like corn, huh? I take it you like corn.
I love popcorn. I love.
It sounds like a pop. Pop. He's a.
I can see he was trying to look for a way out of this too.
Yeah, well, I love chips and salsa. Like,
right?
Oh boy.
Corn
so
chips.
Funny, Todd, you had mentioned that. I have that same thumb thing right here.
Yeah.
Right
there. It's the same thing, and it doesn't seem to be anything. It just is that spot right there.
It doesn't bother me when I'm writing, but I feel it.
Yeah, me neither.
Sometimes just when I'm writing, I feel it.
Yeah, that's a hallmark large intestine acupuncture point. It's a nuisance right now, but the early warning is that's setting the stage for arthritis down the road, because that whole leaky gut mechanism we were talking about, and the irritation in the colon is where arthritis comes from. So
I'm coming to see you.
So we can use that as an indicator. I mean, it'll be within 10 hours probably of consuming, say, corn, that then the thumb starts hurting. Then you can make that mental association with, oops, every time I eat corn, my thumb hurts, or every time I eat dairy, my thumb hurts. It's going to be slightly different for everybody, but
so for Todd, that could be the difference between half a bag and a full bag.
Right.
Quantity and timing. So Todd, something I know you don't care about, improving your race skills and stuff, but something they taught us in Colorado Springs was basically a food diary, and tracking when you eat, how much you eat, and the effects. So, if you found, oh, I have lower back pain, go back and look at your log and see what you ate when you ate it, and see if it repeats. Like every Friday I eat popcorn, every Saturday morning I have back pain, it might correlate. And Dr. V can then help narrow it down from there. But that log can go a long way too.
I'm cutting out the corn for starters. It's everywhere. It's not going to be easy to cut out. Like it's everywhere.
The corn sweetener,
even in our gas in California.
Not in my Tesla.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Right. So that's the low back pain. So, I mean, dairy is also a potential trigger for that type of flank low back pain, and that's going to be an immune suppressant. That's a little bit more specific based on blood type, A's and O's, which is about 84% of the population. With a group like this, percentage-wise, you probably more of you are going to be O blood types than anything else, I would imagine, because O blood types tend to get de-stressed by intense physical activity. So, I mean, this type of the personality that I would anticipate this group would have, for the most part, it's going to be O blood types, which means corn and dairy are going to be challenging on the system. The good news for the O blood type is beef is medicine. Beef's going to help you all and me to some degree perform our best, because it's going to be loaded with B12. It's going to be loaded with iron, the stuff that we need for aerobic performance. Not so much for Jim, because he doesn't fit in that category. But the rest of you, as again, I'm making a bit of an assumption, but if you know you're an O blood type, enjoy your beef.
Okay. Hey, Doc,
got to get some good.
Hey, Doc, can I ask you a question about ice cream?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I've noticed that every time I eat a pint of ice cream at night, the next day when I go out for a ride, I can beat cars. I mean, I'm fast. I'm fast. Yeah, what's up with that? Is that psychological? Oh, I get to eat ice cream because I can be fast, so that now ice cream is good? Or is it really the fat that's causing me to have this extra amount of energy?
Yeah, I mean, it'd have to be the sugar. I mean, B blood types are the one blood type that would do well on dairy. I always thought you were going to talk about your sinuses were a mess, and your intestines were spazzing out after the ice cream.
Well, I mean, I could do a 5-hour ride in 4 hours if I eat a pint of ice cream the night before.
Wow.
Riding so fast so you can get home.
Okay, so I'm B negative, and I've never ever had that happen.
Right.
I wish I had that problem.
Right.
And maybe it's just wishful thinking. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
Todd used to have the ice cream diet.
I did do the ice cream diet. It was great.
Have to check that out.
Oh, by the way, on dairy, we're just talking about milk products, right? Not eggs.
Correct. Eggs are a fair source of protein for all 4 blood types. Yeah, and so the gist on eggs, vary if you're doing eggs on a regular basis, vary the preparation, because scrambled is going to trigger the immune system a different way than over easy would. So if you cook them, over easy today and scramble them tomorrow, then you're a lot less prone to become allergic to them, especially with the overtraining stuff that we just talked about. The other thing, people tend to worry about cholesterol with eggs. When the yolk is cooked soft, that the lecithin is still intact, so that will help lower cholesterol. So yeah, eggs are a pretty good source of protein, even for me as a B blood type. The other guy was a B as well. Chicken is the main shortcoming for B blood types. I don't touch it anymore because it causes me to be totally hypoglycemic and out of it. But eggs are fine. So that's a nuance there.
Hey, doctor, what's the quick recommendations for A positive?
Chill on the beef and be careful on the dairy. Beef will set up literally mono, so low energy and intestinal spasms. Enjoy your avocados, lots of veggies, lots of fish. Would be kind of the nutshell for the A blood type. You want to be A's are high cortisol producers, so you want to be careful you want to be more diligent about base season or base mileage type training, and then pay attention to how you feel when you apply the intervals. Because like when the blood type book was written 25 years ago, he said that there had never been an A in the Olympics. I'm not sure I totally go that far, But the reality is, and what he was referring to, is that A's tend to overtrain and crash and burn before they can get to the prize. So you want to be real diligent on listening to the body so that you can get to the prize, if you will.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I got on late. Did you mention that there's actually an app where you, as an A, can look up a specific food and it'll tell you if it's good, bad, or ugly? Did you mention that, Scott?
I have not been there yet. So the Blood Type Diet app is $3.99 in your app store on your phone. Super valuable resource to have around. And so, like when Jim was talking about the food log and that sort of stuff, I typically recommend as soon as you start falling asleep after you eat, or corn. Todd eats his corn and then starts craving dessert or candy or something afterwards. Then you pull out that app and realize, oh, corn's an avoid for me. So you can pull up whatever that food is based on your blood type, and pretty much whenever you have symptoms or that thumb, it'll help you kind of short circuit the investigation to figure out what the trigger foods are.
Best $4 I spent on an app.
And Dr. V, you do blood type testing at your facility?
We can do blood type testing, or with the I can test foods and kind of figure it out that way as well.
Okay.
Yeah. For
right.
sure. I covered all the leaky gut stuff, and we're burning up time, which is cool. You guys are into it. The other common, let's talk about concussions. That's a pretty common deal. Unfortunately, we tend to land on our heads, right? So wear your helmets. Years ago, I had a buddy that was, helmets are for wusses and that sort of stuff. In fact, we were at the bottom, or at the top of the luge, and three of us were standing there waiting for a couple other guys to come down just that short little drop there. And my buddy's standing there with no helmet on. The guy came down that hill with the helmet on. When OTV went over the bars, landed on a boulder at my helmetless buddy's feet and busted his boulder in half with the guy with his helmet. And my buddy's like, okay, I'm getting it.
Wow.
So helmets, I've cracked a bunch of them. We've all done it, right? So what happens with concussions, especially if it affects the right parietal lobe, technically is what it is, then that inhibits enzymes, and that can set up chronic knee pain in that vastus medialis, that beautiful muscle that we get as cyclists that supports the inside of the knee. And also the quads can become weak, what we call conditionally inhibited after a concussion. So the challenge is, in the medical arena, the medical model for treating a concussion is hide in a dark room like Terry is for 3 days, So that's not doing much for the concussion. We want to keep the good fats. So eating your fish, A blood types, eating avocado, keeping the good omega-3s up are going to get us that protective mechanism for, God forbid, when we do bonk the head. So of course, have a good helmet, replace it after you crash, all that sort of, stuff that we're all familiar with. But the reality is if you land on your head, good chance that it's going to inhibit enzymes and we get bloating. For us physically, it starts showing up as a weakness in the quads and the thigh muscles. And then that's the knee pain that people struggle to figure out, and they keep trying to adjust the seat height and all that sort of stuff. So functionally, supplements to help with that are going to be digestive enzymes. If you're doing it at the store, even something like Wobenzyme or, some of those types of products are going to help alleviate that type of pain. Interestingly, enzymes are natural anti-inflammatory. So if you do get injured, take those enzymes away from food, and Wobenzyme is actually really good for that. I have 10 other products in the office that we would use potentially, but for you guys that are out of the area, speaking of, my staff will ship supplements too. If you want the best of some of those herbs that I've talked about, we can ship those, no problem. And this is not about trying to sell herbs. I'm just trying to help love on my brothers and help you guys all perform your best. But anyway, enzymes, if you get injured, taking enzymes hourly away from food is going to cut the healing time by half. It's pretty miraculous how well they work, and it facilitates the healing process instead of blocking it. So, the medical model, most people are going to be told, take anti-inflammatories or Tylenol or, that stuff. Unfortunately, that inhibits the healing. It slows inflammation or reduces inflammation, but it actually doubles the healing time or prolongs the healing time. So when we do these enzymes taken away from food hourly, especially the first couple of weeks, you're going to get better way faster and reduce the inflammation and heal up better. So, and those enzymes are very good for knee pain. The other very common trigger for that type of knee pain that's right around the kneecap area is chewing gum or breath mints. One of my riding buddies, have sinus issues or something, so they chew gum. They say to keep their sinuses open. It's the aspartame in gum. It's the artificial sweeteners in gum that will cause a weakness of the quad muscle because of what it does to the small intestine. So keeping the gum out, or if you're going to do gum or breath mints, use something like that has xylitol or something that does not have aspartame in it. And your knee's gonna feel a whole lot better. I mean, it's almost immediate, like within the day of cutting the gum out, that you'll recognize change in that type of knee pain. Any of the questions on the knee, on the stuff that we just covered?
That'd be all forms of aspartame too, right? So diet sodas,
Diet Coke.
yeah,
right. Yeah, and then it corrupts intestinal bacteria, which is why it creates a weakness of the quad muscles there. But the scarier part is it's called an excitotoxin because it excites nerve cells to the point of death. So, I mean, it's a big old trigger for long-term scenarios is dementia and depression and things like that. Yes, it gives a little stimulus, we get excited for the minute, but it's very hard on nerve cells. Sorry, Jim. Not that you're doing that, Jim, but
Someone we may know.
So I'm not a fan. There are better ways, and now, I mean, most of us, or some of us at least, are in Southern California, and most of the other areas you guys are in. There's plenty of healthy options and alternatives for that sort of stuff. So chill on the artificial sweeteners. What else did I have to talk about?
What do you think about as athletes we're chronically inflamed with our, so is there something you recommend to we need that, right, to further our training, but not that we don't overdo it?
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what I was referring to as training right to the edge without jumping off the cliff.
Yep.
But the things to help mitigate inflammation is understand the inflammatory foods, right? So like for Todd, corn potentially could be one of the main reasons he'd be inflamed more often than he needs to. Again, digestive enzymes are a way to help bring the inflammation down in a healthy way, not necessarily blocking inflammation like an anti-inflammatory might, but taking those enzymes pre and post big workouts is going to help you recover from those faster. So that's part of the Band-Aid sort of approach to the inflammation, but really the trick is understanding the inflammatory foods. I mean, I really don't feel that way. Yes, I overtrain. I'm more guilty probably than most for overtraining. And that affects my ability my lactate threshold because I'm fried most of my life. But I really do not feel inflamed, and that's because I'm obsessive about my diet. I learned there's now a diagnostic code called orthorexia, which is the propensity to only eat healthy foods and organic foods. I'm like, all right, I got it. I'm an orthorexic.
Nice, I love that. Orthorexic.
Yeah. So the other common cycling injury, going back to the low back pain and the thumb pain, the IT band. A lot of people get pain on the outside of the leg, and they're going to try to adjust the seat height and stuff for it. That IT band gets weak and inhibited, as we were talking about, with colon problems. So if you're eating something, wheat, corn, dairy, potentially beans for the O blood type, something along those lines that's stressing the intestine, then that's going to cause weakness in the IT band, the tensor fasciae lata on the outside of the leg. So that's another one that's pretty common in ache for our cycling friends.
Yeah.
Altitude sickness. Anybody dealt with altitude sickness? You want to talk about that? Got 5 minutes, right?
I had heat stroke in the summer.
So heat stroke is typically an adrenal thing. So that goes back to that whole, astragalus, eleuthero, potentially adrenal glandulars, balancing training properly. That's all. Heat stroke is an adrenal overtraining sort of scenario. So for sure, make sure you're getting good electrolytes with your water and that sort of stuff.
I learned that I need to take salt supplements.
Yeah. So
if I don't take salt, I get cramps.
Yeah. So yeah, you want to do a good electrolyte. I'm careful on the salt tablets. But yeah, I mean, if that's going to help the adrenals and help keep your blood pressure up and that stuff, especially training in Palm Springs and so on, where you're sweating more. So yeah, I mean, keep the good salt up. Make sure it's one that works well for you. Celtic sea salt is my favorite. Celtic sea salt is literally the exact same mineral content and ratio that sweat is. So
I just
put
bought
Celtic
a
sea
thing
salt
at Costco. It's a pink Himalayan pink salt or something like that.
Yeah. So the Himalayan salt is my second favorite. It's a fair choice. If you're doing it every day, there's some speculation about maybe some metals or something in there. But yeah, it's a good one.
How do you spell Celtic?
C.
Oh, with like okay, so Celtic.
Gotcha. CELTIC, Celtic. Mm-hmm.
Just like it sounds, Todd.
Right. So the altitude thing, some of you guys have been talking about Leadville and so on. Altitude sickness is typically an antioxidant deficiency. So antioxidants are basically vitamin A, vitamin C, and vitamin E kind of fits in there too. So those are your antioxidants to help metabolize, help deal with oxygen when we get up higher. So like when I hiked Whitney a few years ago, and I took this product called ACP, which is basically a food source of vitamin A and vitamin C. And on the way up, the two guys I was hiking up with at that time started reaching in their fanny pack to pull out Advil and so on. I'm like, oh, no, put this in your mouth. And so you chew on a couple of these this Cataplex ACP, and the altitude sickness would go away right there. And, we continue on up the hill. On our way back down the hill, some gal was literally on the side of the trail in convulsions and kind of spazzing out with altitude sickness. I literally put 4 of these in her mouth. She chewed them up and stood up and walked down the rest of the, completed the trail and was all good with us. We use it like when we've done retreats in Mammoth. My cycling team does annual retreats at Mammoth. When the guys are struggling with altitude sickness, you take these antioxidants and then they're good. So it gets rid of the headaches, gets rid of the cramps and that sort of stuff that would go along with typical altitude sickness. So something that, for an event like Leadville that's at altitude, that's a real good part of the program, preparing for it. Question?
Yeah. How are you on time, Dr. V?
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Is there a supplement recommendation for oxygen absorption, like increasing your ability to process oxygen?
Yeah. So that's this vitamin A, vitamin C. Ultimately is going to help us utilize oxygen better. Certainly iron, anemia is that's why doping, right? All those other guys did.
Right.
But that's the benefit of doping is the iron of the blood cell heme carries oxygen, right? So the way we do that, we can do that naturally, is eat the high iron foods, which is kale, spinach, and beets. Beets helps with nitric oxide, so that's part of why they're such a great performance food. So we eat the beets, kale, and spinach. That's going to help keep our oxygen level or our iron levels up. So then we're going to carry oxygen like we're doping, so to speak. But then antioxidants is the bomb. I would think if you guys are doing Leadville, the product that I would recommend is a product called Cardio Plus, because it actually has a little bit of heart tissue in there. If you're starting to bonk or starting to cramp, then even chewing a couple of those during the ride has worked kind of miraculous for a lot of my friends.
And it's a chewable? It's a chewable?
Yeah, it's a tablet. There's no flavoring in it per se, but yeah, that kind of thing, chewing it up, you get more immediate stimulus to the nervous system, so it works faster in that case. But yeah, if you're taking it in the morning, you can just swallow it potentially.
Nice.
Let's see, what else did I have? Low back, IT, performance foods. Yeah, we talked about performance foods. Nitric oxide is a heavy hitter, a hot topic these days. Altitude recovery. Leaky gut. With the leaky gut stuff, back to the stuff we were talking about there, the muscle that gets weak with that is, it's called the vastus lateralis. It's on the outside of the quad muscle there. And it's going to be real kind of tender in that area. That's going to cause the kneecap to not track properly. So when we're overstressed or like smoking, getting toxic metals, it also causes leaky gut. That's going to be a weakness on the outside of the knee. So that's that type of a knee pain. Yeah.
Did you talk about recovery foods in general, and when and what and how much to eat?
Yeah, that's a good question. So post-exercise, so I mean, Carmichael, talks about starting to eat, before he finishes his ride, because we want to start preparing for the next ride right away. So, I mean, ultimately, the good news is if we're going to splurge or eat sugary type foods, the cells are most sensitive to uptake of insulin and glucose and stuff for the first half hour and for the next 2 hours, first 2 hours after exercise. So we get that in, we get the body's ready. It's when we're clamoring to get the nutrients in, but certainly recovery food is protein. That's going to rebuild, give us the amino acids to rebuild the immune system. Certainly if it's if we're sweating, we want to replace the electrolytes. I usually use an electrolyte in that case with something that has a little bit of B vitamins and has some amino acids in it as post-workout. I have some little protein smoothies. Typically I'm looking to get a good 20 grams of protein within almost immediately when I get done training. If I've done a real big ride and I come home to a honey-do list or something and I don't get proper food in right away, that's where I'm going to be standing on the edge of that cliff and ready to I could crash and burn if I didn't get that food in right away. So recovery foods, for the A blood type, avocado, for the O blood type, beef, protein shakes, protein smoothies, with, for all the blood types, vegetable-based protein is going to be a good thing. We want to get that in right after, and certainly, rehydrating and so on. So, I mean, that's the main gist. Any other questions on that? Sushi, I like sushi too. As the night before, that seems to work well. We get the good fats, good balanced meal.
Anything to carbo loading like they talked in the old days?
Yeah, it makes you look like a sumo wrestler.
Oh,
That's how sumo wrestlers look that way. They eat all their calories right before they go to bed. So that's why I said I'm more of a balanced guy. I'd prefer to do some carb, but some good fat and good protein the night before. I feel my best typically eating sushi, or I mean, for me as a B blood type, and one of the other guys was B as well. Lamb is kind of my superfood. So my wife knows, the night before race night, I'm looking to do lamb for a meal. I think the carbo loading I'm shocked that some coaches are still doing it that much. I feel slow doing that personally.
Feels great on fajitas.
Good on what?
Fajitas.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Minus more.
Yeah. All righty.
Do you know your blood type?
Pardon me?
Do you know your blood type?
I don't. I'm curious to find out.
Right. I would guess O blood type, but I could get surprised.
And that's where that journal can come in handy, is if you're, tracking what, not only during the ride, but the night before, the morning of, how soon before you start the race. Is it 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour before? All of that, if you want to really look at it, you should record it and track the results.
I'm going to do that for sure. I'm going to get over to see Dr. V and figure it all out.
Awesome. Make you even faster, huh? Scary.
The idea. Well, I don't know, honestly. I think at this age, if you study 100-meter sprinters, although it looks like the guy that wins the race is speeding up, he's just slowing down slower than the rest of the racers. They're all slowing down after 40 meters.
Right. All right.
It's so the goal, I think, for me is to slow down slower than everybody else.
Right. I hear you. I know I was always priding myself in still being able to beat my times that I did when I was 30, and it's getting harder and harder to do.
Right. Exactly. I'm thinking about some PRs I want to try and bust this year. They're pretty hard.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. Well, anybody else have a question they want to ask Dr. V? Don't be shy.
Are you accepting new patients?
I am. The challenge is that, I'm booked until, I'm booked until like February at this point. But we maintain a cancellation list. So, it changes by the day. So, that would be the gig. If you're wanting to get in, get rocking, get on the calendar, and then they can call you if we get an opening sooner.
Okay.
So, for sure.
That'd be cool. All righty. Well, much thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. I definitely learned more than one thing. And I truly appreciate your time.
Yeah, I was trying to take notes. Good.
Thank you. Yeah, it was good. Happy to help. Gotta look out for help my brothers, right?
Yeah, Todd,
Yeah.
Todd, is it possible to get him to do another one soon?
Well, we'll have to talk to the doctor. But before, he already mentioned that he would be willing to do that. So I'm sure we'll have him back at some point. Dr. V, before we go, I know you mentioned that you're in Laguna Hills. Let us, for the guys that want to, what's the best way to find you, I guess?
Follow me on social media if you want more health pearls. DrVrzal or dr.vrzal on Instagram is where I'll be posting. And like I said, I've got a book coming out, so I'd love it if you guys could, check that out or share that with your stuff. Anybody got headaches? Other than that, the office number is 949-582-9090 if you want that.
Keep us posted on the book, because I'm sure there'll be some customers here, me for sure. And do you have a title yet for the book?
The Headache Advantage.
Oh boy.
He passed over, not now I have a headache. He didn't like my idea.
Yeah, that will be part of my marketing campaign though.
Yeah. I like that, the Headache Advantage.
So it's basically
spin on it.
Yeah, the seven patterns of head pain and how to build tremendous health. So it's the reason I call it an advantage is because the location of the head pain tells me where the primary weakness is for that person. So for example, if they had a right-sided headache, that's always a gallbladder problem. So then I'd be looking at things that would compromise the gallbladder. Stop eating glyphosate because that affects the gallbladder. Eat beets, eat some of these B vitamins or things like that are going to help the gallbladder function. So that's going to be going on in the book.
Awesome. All righty. Well, if there's no more questions, we're going to let everybody go. It's been an awesome call. Appreciate everybody's time and input.
Thanks, Todd, for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. V.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Todd.
All right.
Thanks,
See you
Todd.
guys.
All right.
Take care.
All right.
Hey everybody, these podcasts and vlogs are new for Pedal Industries, so if you're enjoying them, please like and subscribe and share with your friends. Thanks so much. Keep challenging yourself.